Hey everybody. Hey, sorry I'm so late today. It's 9:06. Golly. This is late for me. I'm actually 6 minutes late and I got so carried away with typing up something about just our anniversary coming up here tomorrow. Me and Sil are 27 years, man, in the books. So we are totally stoked. And I was typing something up, and then I looked at the clock, and I was like, "Whoa, it's already 9:05 or something." So, hey, sorry, I'm a little bit late. Good having you in. Hey, Danica, what's happening? It's good having you check in. That's for sure. It's awesome. Been praying for you quite a bit. Um, and all in good stuff, But awesome to see you, and I hear of you, from through the grapevine of the church. But awesome to be able to have you join me. This is the AM Devo with Bo O. We are in Hebrews chapter 5 today. And I hope you guys are enjoying this book of Hebrews. It's absolutely insane. Super cool. We're talking about the high priest. Remember the high priest? It's used how many times did I say? If you remember yesterday, it was how many times? 17, I think, times that the word high priest is used. And it's relating to Jesus being our high priest. Now, something might hit the Jewish listener to the writer of for the writer of Hebrews, because the writer of Hebrews is anticipating a question, and that is, hey, how could Jesus be our high priest if he is not from the Levitical priesthood? See, out of the 12 tribes of Israel, and man, if you're a Bob Marley fan out there, you know all about the 12 tribes, right? Or you definitely know about the Lion of the tribe of Judah. You definitely know about the tribe of Judah. Bob Marley sang about that all the time. But there was 12 tribes to the people of Israel, and one of those tribes was designated as the priestly tribe. So out of that tribe would come the high priest and the other priest that would serve in the tabernacle or the temple. And the tabernacle is just a moving temple. So it preceded the actual built temple in Jerusalem on what's called Mount Zion, the holy mountain of God kind of thing. So anyway, that's the question that's being answered by the writer. Now I want you to see something cool. The writer has been quoting the Bible, okay, that he had, which is the Old Testament, to prove the greatness of Jesus over angels, over Moses, over Joshua, and now he's going to talk about Jesus's greatness by using the Old Testament over the Levitical priesthood. That was a concept that was really tough, probably, for the Jewish person to hear 2,000 years ago and today. The idea that the actual high priesthood is in Messiah is superseding that of the old Levitical priesthood with one of the tribes being designated. And so he that's what he's doing in this chapter. He's kind of piggybacking a little bit on, of course, what he just wrote about Jesus being our faithful high priest, that we're all vulnerable before God. Everything's naked before the Lord. So, man, if you don't think you're naked, you are naked. You're always naked before the Lord. He knows everything. And because he is a faithful high priest and can sympathize you with your weaknesses, you can come boldly to the throne of grace. He understands your weakness, and he can sympathize with you, so you can come to him in that vulnerability. Now it says, for every high priest taken from among men, or mankind, the word anthropos, I think it is, in the Greek, just means mankind. Every high priest which is taken from among mankind. Now you'll have to check that to see if that's just men, like as in mankind, or if it's just men. I actually didn't look, but usually the translations, when it says men, it could be translated mankind too. So for every high priest taken from among men is appointed for men in things pertaining to God. So a high priest is taken from amongst the people and is appointed or ordained for men, appointed for men in the things pertaining to God. A high priest is there to help you, right? Is there to help you out. And it says that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. That's his job, is to help you out by playing this in this middleman role between God and you. He can have compassion on those who are ignorant and going astray, since he himself is also subject to weakness. So the high priest would always sacrifice for himself first. Why? Because leadership always admits failure. That's right. Isn't that crazy? Good leadership is always admitting their own failure too. So what does the priest do? They sacrifice for their own sin first, and then they sacrifice for the sins of the other. That's right. If you're going to a church where you have a pastor who does not have any sin in his life, he's probably lying, and you probably need to leave that church. I say that facetiously, but what I'm getting to just in the Devo is we have to lead. And leading sometimes means all areas. Do I lead in repentance? Do I lead in asking for forgiveness? Do I lead in confession of sin? Do I lead in... See, a lot of us just want to lead in being strong. We want to lead in being successful. We want to lead in those things. But the Bible tells us about, lead in all ways, and that's what the high priest did. They led in sacrificing for their own sins, meaning there was an admission of their own sin. And so they are able to have compassion on those. Isn't that great? To have compassion, this verb occurs only here in the New Testament. It carries the idea of maintaining a controlled but gentle attitude in the treatment of those who are spiritually ignorant and wayward. Isn't that cool? It says, impatience, loathing, and indignation have no part in the priestly ministry. There needs to be gentleness. Someone needs to realize their own human frailty, right? So that's what this is talking about, having compassion. Do you have compassion on people? Do you know your own frailty? So, it's amazing how people can look at people and go, oh man, how disgusting. And yet they totally are blind to their own yuck. And it is super crazy how that works in our life, isn't it? Where at the moment we look at someone and we go, man, and we have this like disdain, this like, we really attack them. So it's not just us going, man, that sin's, oh man, it burdens me. Man, I hate to see that sin on my child, my kid. I hate to see that person I love going in that direction, or I hate to see humankind going in that direction, and I see the sin and how it tears them apart. It's not like just this heartfelt grieving over the burden of what sin has done or what it's doing. But instead it's this wrath against the person, right? This real this real judgment that goes on. And that's something that we have to stay away from, because man, dude, we do have plank going all over the place in our own eye. And it's amazing when we can put someone down. We can put down Rahab the harlot, and we can say, oh, Rahab the harlot, you're the harlot. Or Bathsheba, you slept with David. Or Tamar, you dressed up as a prostitute and slept with your father-in-law. And we can start going and start dissing people left and right. But yet Judah was the dude who slept with Tamar, and David's the one who killed Bathsheba's husband. And, we can go down the list, right? Of what put Rahab in that situation that she was in. A lot of times us men have the problem. And let me give you a for instance, right? We can look at the world today, and people can give you totally a lot of reasons why everything is bad and the way it is. But let me give you one reason why everything's the way it is. If you go into history, you're going to find that what goes on today is a pendulum swing from still the Dark Ages. Meaning, when you look at how the church treated the world back in the day, super bad. Super bad. Wars fought between churches, killing, capital punishments of people who were apostate. So if you didn't believe the right thing, you were killed. Yeah, you were murdered. You would be persecuted and killed by the church. The church's view on intimacy and relations, sexual relations, even within marriage, was absolutely horrible. I mean, beyond horrible. And what you're seeing today is just the flip of these things. You see the pendulum going fully the other way. It's like natural, where we're just going to go, we don't want that at all. And so, in a nutshell, that's what's going on, man. So sometimes we can look at other people and we can go, hey, look at what's going on. But really, the finger always points back to, hey, what am I doing? Being a compassionate high priest. That's what these guys were. Because of this, he was required as for the people, so also himself, to offer sacrifices for sins. And no man takes this honor on himself, but he who is called by God, just as Aaron was. So the priesthood was something that you couldn't just take on yourself. It was something that you were called by God, right? It was something. Ordination of a minister is not by some dude, not by some board, but it's by who? It's by the Lord, right? And so we see that. So also Christ, now he gets back to Jesus. Okay, now let's look at the betterment of Jesus. So also Jesus did not glorify himself to become high priest, but it was God the Father who said, today you are my son, I have begotten you, right? Psalm chapter 2. So in the Old Testament, this guy's using the Bible to say, hey, the Son, Jesus, was called by God, ordained. Just like the priests were called by God, so Jesus was called, the Messiah would be called by God, right? You are my son, today I have begotten you. In verse 6, he also says in another place, and what's this quote to? That's what it says in my Bible. You can look at your own and check it out. Psalm 110. Verse 4, it says, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. So in Psalm 2, the call of the Messiah is that the Messiah, I have called you today, you are my son, today I have begotten you. And we see Psalm 110, which comes after Psalm 2, says also that the Messiah, God's anointed, the Son, would be a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. So now this Melchizedek was interesting because he was a king and a priest, we're going to see, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with vehement cries and tears of him who was able to save him from death, he was heard because of his godly fear, though he was a son, and it's talking about Jesus, yet he learned obedience by all things which he suffered. And having been perfected, he became the author of eternal salvation to all who obey him, called by God as high priest according to the order of Melchizedek, of whom we have much to say and hard to explain since you have become kind of dull of hearing. That's kind of what he says. It's really cool. Now what I want you to understand is this Melchizedek guy was a figure in the Old Testament. He's mentioned, of course, or the Messiah is mentioned as being a priest according to the order of Melchizedek. Now remember, I told you about the 12 tribes and Levi and that tribe being designated and called by God to be priest. Well, there was another priest in the Old Testament who wasn't from the tribe of Levi, and he was the king of a place called Salem, and you see Abraham kind of run into him after his wartime. And Abraham pays him an offering. We're going to find in the book of Hebrews, it's going to talk about this and give us commentary on something that happened back in the book of Genesis. So Genesis 14 verses 18 through 20, you might want to check out and read about that. But we'll talk about him more. But what I want you to see is now it gets into Jesus, who Jesus in the days of his flesh, during his priesthood ministry, he offered up prayers and supplications. See, there's a like here. Just as the priest offered up sacrifices, so Jesus offers up prayers and supplications, right? Vehement cries. He's a sacrifice of praise unto the Lord, right? Just as a priest does. He's interceding for us, right? And he's praying to the Father. And it says he learned obedience. Now, Christ did not need to suffer in order to conquer or correct any disobedience, because he didn't disobey. In his deity as the Son of God, he understood obedience completely. As the incarnate Lord, he humbled himself to learn. He learned obedience for the same reasons he bore temptation, to confirm his humanity and experience its suffering to the fullest. So he confirmed his humanity through walking as a human does, right? Experiencing what we experience. Christ's obedience was also necessary that he could fulfill all righteousness, so he could do righteousness, and thus prove to be the perfect sacrifice to take the place of sinful mankind, right? Absolutely. So that's right. So that's what it's talking about there when it says he was like a high priest. He offered up prayers and tears to the Lord, to God, his Father, who's able to save him from death. And yet the Son had an incredible godly fear and just a righteousness about him, and he learned as a human to walk in obedience by the things which he suffered, the trials, the testings that would take place, right? And having been completed, matured in that way of his humanity, he became the author of eternal salvation to all who obey him. Isn't that great? So he's called by God to be a faithful high priest, not according to the Levitical priesthood, but according to the Melchizedekian priesthood. And it says, for though by this time you ought to be teachers, meaning he's getting into this. He's getting into his Bible study. He's using the Old Testament, and he's giving us an example or he's actually breaking down the Old Testament to us. Now, what's really cool, let me give you something that's really interesting, is that when he quotes Psalm 110, you have to understand that Psalm 10 is a commentary on Genesis 14. So when the psalm is written or sung in Psalm 110, it's actually revealing more of something about the Messiah based off of something that happened in the book of Genesis, really early on, right, in the life of Abraham. And so you have the Psalms opening up or revealing things that happened prior to the Psalms in the book of Genesis. And then what I find really neat is now you have, later on down the road, the book of Hebrews, which is opening up the Psalms and taking the Psalms and even revealing more of what that means. So you get the idea that as the Bible is being written, that there is a revelation, there is an unveiling that is constantly happening on who Christ is, and the plan of God. And obviously you get all the way to the book of Revelation, the revealing, the unveiling of Christ, right? Very cool. So anyway, it says, for those by this time, you guys should be teaching this stuff, right? You guys should know this stuff. And he says to his brothers, his Jewish brothers, man, you guys should know these things, right? But you need someone to teach you. You need someone to teach you all over again. The elementary principles, the beginning things. Like you're in kindergarten again. You need this again. And it's kind of interesting that he talks to them that way, right? Hey, you guys, you should be knowing this already. I want to talk about it more, but I don't think you guys are ready, right? He says, you guys, you have to be taught again that elementary principles of the Word of God, and you have come to need milk and not solid food. Right? You can't go on to maturity of the word because you haven't obeyed the first parts. For everyone who partakes only in milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But solid food belongs to those who are of full age, that is, they have teeth. Those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. So he's just using a metaphor, kind of the baby, right? Feeding on milk. Not being mature, not being able to get to the meat. And he says, you guys are like babies. You're still just on the milk. And you're not able to discern. You're not able to move in the right way. You're not able to obey what the word says. and specifically about who the Christ is, and to follow the Christ, the Messiah, the one who our scriptures speak of. And so he gives him that kind of warning there, right? Of saying, hey, I want you guys to go on to maturity here. And so, there's deeper truths that he wants them to go into, and he will continue to move in that direction. The writer of Hebrews knew the word really well. And so he's given us wonderful commentary on who Jesus is in the Old Testament. And he does it this time by referring to Melchizedek. And he says, hey, you always wanted to know who Melchizedek is? And well, Jesus is a type of Melchizedek. He's a priest according to Melchizedek. So he's a priest, and Melchizedek was also a king. Two things. So the Levites were just priests, but Jesus was from the line of Judah, which is the kingly line. So he was from the king line of Israel. And he's also a priest according to the line of Melchizedek, in the order, I should say, of Melchizedek, the likeness of Melchizedek. He's going to get back on this Melchizedek thing pretty soon, and we're going to see that. Before he does, though, he's going to give us chapter 6, what we call chapter 6, which is a really, really cool chapter for us. So, hey, have a great day. Hope you enjoyed that, man. A really interesting study, and you guys have a great one. Bye-bye.